Our story begins 65 million years ago in Brooklyn, New York. The Earth is a bubbling stew of primordial ooze, inhabited by overgrown reptiles with thick skins, tiny brains, and big, sharp teeth. Suddenly, the red sky grows dark. Out of the blackness, a meteorite hurtles to the Earth. As the big rock slowly sinks into the Earth's soft crust, a small, cone-shaped sliver of crystal breaks off. Our story continues. In Brooklyn, a mere 64,999,980 years later, a breathless and beautiful young woman tenderly places a bundle on the steps of a Gothic church. She takes from around her neck an exquisite pendant, a unique cone-shaped sliver of crystal, and places it inside the bundle. As she does, we catch a glimpse of the contents. It's a large metal egg, an egg unlike any other seen by modern man. As we watch, the egg moves, it cracks, and a tiny, delicate human hand reaches out into the night. Our young woman leaves reluctantly. Darting into an abandoned tunnel held up by rotting beams, she heads toward a familiar and distinctive rock formation at the end of the tunnel. A handsome, evil-looking intruder overtakes her.
Where's the rock? Where did you leave the rock?
For now, the question will go unanswered.
Welcome to the Mid-Jump. This is the episode of the SuperJump podcast that isn't actually the SuperJump podcast. The Mid-Jump is something that we put out between full-fledged SuperJump podcasts in the same feed, just so we can give our listeners a little something to listen to between the big full-fledged SuperJump podcast, because they only happen every 2 weeks. But with this, we can give you something every week. This is the freewheeling, free speech, free thought, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, freedom to bear arms, freedom to have bear's arms. This is all of the freedoms, all of the time. The only constraint that we're putting on the mid-jumps is that they need to at least tangentially relate to video games. So of course this time we're talking about a movie. I have a huge affinity for the movie we're about to talk to, and I've brought two guests who share that affinity, and I don't think there's anyone I would rather have on the show than these people. So let's introduce them. First, we have from Australia, like usual, but not James. So unlike usual, we have Milo. Hey Milo, how's it going?
Hey, good, thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. And we have James, even though unlike James, it's not James, but this is a different James. Hey James.
Howdy.
James from America.
Yeah,
Maximum
I'm the only
confusion.
James in America.
I will occasionally refer to James as Gibbon, because that is sometimes what he's called. Sometimes the thing that he goes by.
Yep. Commonly seen online as I am Gibbon.
I have a real
So-
name too. But
Well, Milo could be it. So like, you're safe.
I just
Yeah.
like to point out that Gibbon is a legitimate real name, and lots of prominent historical figures have it.
Yeah, or like Gibby from iCarly.
I don't know what that is.
Too old for that kid stuff. Can't know what Gibby from iCarly is. But
Okay.
This year, speaking of aging, it's 2018 right now, which means that it's the
God.
25th anniversary of none other than the Super Mario Brothers movie. Whoa. 25 years. It's crazy how
Christ.
fast time moves when something was released before I was born. But Crazy
Okay.
movie. Just let's get that right off the bat. Insane movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I feel like you should probably watch it before you listen to this episode. Don't worry, we'll wait here on pause in your phone while you do that, and when you come back, we'll just
No,
be ready
we'll
to
keep
talk
talking.
about it.
We'll wait for
keep
them. We'll just
talking
make
the
some
whole time.
conversation. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
I'll
what
be
you been
watching
up to?
with you.
So first I wanted to talk about the context in which we first saw this movie. I'll start. It was way after the fact. I saw this movie well into the 2000s for the first time, and it was so crazy. It was at least in terms of Mario releases, at least after Super Mario Sunshine came out. And I had loved Mario. I grew up on Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine. Loved him so much. He's my favorite plumber man. Even when I was just a plumber boy. But I had no idea this movie existed. So when I heard there's a Mario movie, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like that is the craziest thing you could tell me. Especially when I found out that I found out earlier there was a Mario TV show, but that was a cartoon, and that felt more like that just felt more believable. But this is a live action Mario movie that's played so straight, and just wow. I saw it, I fell in love with it, even though it was absolutely nothing like a Mario movie should, for all intents, be.
Yeah.
Like, it should not be this.
Yeah, if you
I
ask someone
love
what
it.
to expect from a Mario movie, this is definitely not what they would say first.
No. Milo, how about you? When did you first watch this movie?
Yeah, so the movie came out when I was 4 years old, so thanks for making me feel old. I did not see it in the theaters, but I would have rented the video from our local Civic Video, which is now a pizza place, by the way. Yeah, that's a whole world that's totally disappeared.
I think I did that too.
Yeah. They also had VHSs of some of the cartoons that you were mentioning. I don't know which one exactly it was, whether it was the Super Mario World cartoon or the Super Show. They went to space. I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, I'd seen that, and I'd played some of the games, so I had a context for what Mario was. But yeah, like I said, the movie is so different from that, but still it really works. It makes something of itself, I think. I don't really remember what my thoughts were at the time that I watched it, but I've certainly come to love it now.
And Gibbon, or James, whichever you prefer at this juncture, what was your context for seeing the movie?
I was like 6.5 when it came out. I want to say I saw it in theaters. I have a vague recollection of that, but I have much more vivid memories of renting it constantly from the local video store.
Nice.
And like being asked to maybe let somebody else see it every once in a while because it basically like lived at our home. And I had no concept of like this is separate from the games. It was just like, this is Mario Brothers. Of course, this is part of the thing that is Super Mario. So
that's
and
beautiful.
I was enamored with it. Yeah, I talk about this with you guys sometimes, where I don't like how like the Mario stuff is separated into like, oh, the RPGs are separate from the main line or separate from like the sports games or whatever. To me, it's all Mario.
Right, at least in
So-
terms of like canon that's repeated throughout the games.
Yeah. One thing that comes up in some of the other fandoms I associate with a lot is the distinction between canon and continuity, which is important because everything is canon, but not everything is necessarily in continuity with each other. But yeah, no, I love this film. I still love this film. I think my brother views it less fondly these days, but
This
yeah.
movie is, for all that we're talking about it, pretty solidly agreed to be a bad movie. Let's get that out of the way up front. We are in the minority, for sure. It's not loved.
Yeah.
it's not appreciated.
It's underappreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
I would
unjustly
say so.
maligned.
So, a little history here. Mario was on the incline. He was one of the most popular characters of the 1980s. And in the late 80s and early 90s, Nintendo and all the movie studios were in talks of how to adapt a video game to a movie. Not just Mario, but like a video game in general. Because we were talking about this earlier, and I think this actually was the first movie based on a video game.
Yeah, I saw that in some of the videos I was watching the other day that came out around the 20th anniversary. There was a bit from John Leguizamo. Yeah, I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah, lasagna.
Yes. There was a bit from
Lasagna,
him
yeah.
where he was talking about how he didn't quite realize the significance of it at the time, but it was the first live action movie, live action tie-in movie.
Yeah, that's what the back of my DVD box says. The first ever live action adaptation of a popular video game. So I don't know if there was a previous one that was unpopular, but
Well, there was like
interesting
War
what you
Games
say about
and
how-
Tron, which didn't have video games first, but you know they were
Yeah.
about.
And then there was like, I recently discovered that there's like actually an anime Mario Bros movie that was out before this.
right.
oh yeah,
But
Peach and Die whatever something.
yeah,
that's why
where,
Milo's here.
like Luigi's in blue and yellow, and everyone looks weird, and it's just
Yeah,
it's
and
really
there's
adorable.
there's this dog that
Yeah.
accompanies them, and in the end, it turns into Peach's love interest. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 80s anime is what it is.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
So
Lovely.
But you mentioned there that John Leguizamo didn't like have a conception of what he was making at the time.
well, he knew he was in the Mario Brothers
Yeah,
movie,
yeah, yeah.
and that was awesome. But he didn't realize that like this was the first time
Hmm.
that it had sort of thing had been done.
Well, it was interesting because Dennis Hopper and Bob Hoskins didn't even know it was based on a video game until like their children told them.
Good lord.
So just to clarify who we're talking about here, Dennis Hopper plays King Koopa. Is that Bowser? Well, that question goes unanswered. Kinda. John Leguizamo plays Luigi, and Bob Hoskins plays Mario. I know what you're thinking. There's a significant age difference. So how do they make that work? That is the question that also goes unanswered. But
No, it does work though. That's part of the movie. That's their dynamic and that's their relationship.
well, why don't you go ahead and explain that then?
Okay, well, they have this relationship in the film where Mario is grounded, he's traditionalist, he's very invested in his family and the generations that came before him who were all plumbers. So his identity is wrapped up in his business and his family. And since their parents died, he's been raising his much younger brother, Luigi. And Luigi is very different to him, and they play up those differences in the film. Luigi's more of a dreamer. He says he believes in things, and he has good feelings about things. These are some of the lines he has. But it's kind of vague and sort of... He's a kind of a flaky guy.
Yeah.
But over the course of the film, they sort of learn from each other, and like
I wonder if they were trying to play on the age gap between like kids who play games and their parents, because at the time.
oh yeah, certainly. There's a scene
yeah.
in the police car where Mario's struggling with the controls and Luigi picks them up intuitively because he plays video games all the time, so he can just grasp how this weird
yeah.
computer system works. And Mario's
they
baffled
do
by
that
it.
later in Men in Black too. Huh, interesting. Anyway,
Well, yeah. Personally, I have a much younger sister who's about 11 years younger than me, so
man.
I can kind of like feel out this relationship a bit, but not really, because the gap between Mario and Luigi is like 30 years or so, maybe more in this movie. It's quite a bit of time.
I mean, that sounds a little ridiculous, but like my dad was like the youngest of 5 or 6 kids, and his only brother of that brood was the eldest. So like, there's a huge gap between them.
But like 30 years?
I don't know. I never got the impression it was 30 years. I just thought like generic movie. We cast people, and this is the older brother, and this is the younger brother.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's
Sort
a
of thing.
certain amount, and actually a lot amount, of the movie just saying, hey, we know this isn't how this works, but like if you believe in us, and if you put that on the back burner for the duration of the film, you will have a good time.
Yeah,
this is
that's
very much
certainly
a-
the way to watch the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very much a. If you stop to think about this, you're missing the movie and doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So the Super Mario Brothers movie is not, and by all accounts, it is not an adaptation of any specific game or series of games in the Mario franchise. The premise of the movie is that, hey, remember that asteroid that knocked out all the dinosaurs? What if asteroids worked like a lot different and actually coded the dimension of Earth that those dinosaurs live in inside of its own crystalline pocket dimension container thing, and then the mammals were separated from that, so they were allowed to evolve into what we are now, humans, while dinosaurs and more reptilian species were also able to evolve into their own humanoid species, of which King Koopa is one, of which what the female lead of the movie, Princess Daisy, is also one.
Yeah, it's a
And-
pretty high concept idea, and
Yeah.
like we said, it has
It's-
nothing to
yeah.
do with the Super Mario Brothers games
Nothing.
at all.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it's like, where the fuck did they come up with this?
Yeah, because in the movie they kind of play it like this is an excuse to have all of those enemies that you see in Super Mario Brothers.
This isn't even where that meteor hit,
Yeah.
and the crater was way bigger.
So the enemies in
Anyway,
Super
yeah,
Mario
yeah.
Brothers, you'll remember they're Koopas, which are turtles, or they are Goombas, which are chestnuts. And
No, that's only the ones in Super Mario World. The Goombas in 1 through 3 are evil mushroom guys.
Well, the-
Their name is still based on chestnuts, though. Karibo.
thank you, Milo. Yeah.
okay.
They've always had a chestnut connection.
Yeah, but they just changed them to look more like
But doesn't it say in
chestnuts.
the manual that like they're evil mushroom kingdom? Whatever.
It does. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. They are simultaneously mushrooms and chestnuts. So
And also,
Okay.
what is it? What is it? The one-up mushroom that they recolored to look like a Goomba, or like they reused the
Yeah.
sprite kind of thing? Yeah.
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 So you're thinking those don't sound like humanoid lizards. Correct. But
You would be correct.
the way they recontextualize what a Goomba is and what a Koopa Troopa is in this universe is kind of genius. I think it's
Yeah, this is like
to say it's
This is
just
like if-
wacky would be undercutting how smart this is, I think.
Yeah, it's another great
Because-
concept. And when you see them, you
I-
instantly fall in love with them.
like I've said it before, but this is basically like everyone's gritty deviant art Mario reboot.
Mhm.
This is like BioWare was tasked with making a Mario game on the Mass Effect engine, and this is what popped out.
And it
sort
still
of
has to
thing.
come out for the Xbox 360 for some reason. Like, yeah, this is that. But it's that, but they got to make it. Like, they actually did it, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
It really is.
Oh,
Yeah.
the best part about this film is that it got made. Can you imagine seeing all these storyboards and concept art and not having the film and just having to dream about what it would be like?
Oh God.
Well, that's a good point, because the storyboard and concept art for this film is radically different from what actually was produced, wasn't it?
To some extent.
I think it's fair to say
Like-
that they couldn't fulfill all of the concepts that they had in the concept stage.
Like looking at the concept stuff and then looking at the film, like they were certainly trying.
Yeah, but
So-
obviously there's always limitations of budget when you're making a film and time. This film did go way over budget and over time, and it did not make its money back at the box office. But there were also many script changes during development. So what the film was conceived as changed several times from the planning stages to the actual shooting.
Yeah.
And that's part interesting. That's part of what makes it semi-unsuccessful at some of the things it was trying to do, you could say.
Yeah, like, even just up to, like, because the way film novelizations typically work is you send the shooting script to whichever author you've chosen, and they write up the novelization based on that script treatment. And even just looking at the novelization of this film, because yes, it got one, because every film got one back in the day.
And it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. But even just looking at that, there are scenes that are slightly different or just not in the film, and expansions on stuff.
Yeah, you can tell that that Todd Strasser, who did the novelization, got a version of this script and made the novelization based on that. But then there were changes after that, sort of at the last minute for the actors. And they've backed that up in interviews, saying how much of a disaster the process was, with the directors coming in and changing things up really late in the process, and also the studio meddling and changing it.
Like, some of that's understandable, just typical, like, cut for time and pacing stuff.
Right,
but,
yeah.
But there were some, like, so to get something out of the way, Disney helped produce and distribute this film. They own the distribution rights to this. This is a Disney movie for all legal intents and purposes. They made several suggestions, like, after filming was done and they were in the post-production, like, well, what if you move, like, this scene over here and this scene over here, and we trim this thing and put this, and by all accounts, looking at it, because people have actually, like, looked at those and made that fan edit of the film and going, yeah, this does flow a lot better. But at the time, those were ultimately rejected.
It's weird to imagine a reality where an edict from Disney isn't just taken as, okay, I guess we're definitely doing that now.
Actually, yeah, now that I think about that, it's like, wait, Disney was like, we think you should edit it this way for a better experience. And they were like, nah!
Well, yeah, I guess it just goes to show how much smaller Disney was then than now. Even though Disney was still Disney, but...
Yeah, but Disney wasn't in charge of creating the film. It was a smaller production company called, I forget, but also the directors were very hands-on. They wanted to make it their vision. So I could see them rejecting any outside interference in that way. And with the scene change-up stuff, you can actually see, if you look through the script, how things are in a slightly different order. And there's revision pages that change when things happen. And reading the novelization, it is also slightly different, especially in the middle of the film when you have scenes chopping between the Mario brothers and Daisy and Cooper and Lena. And that carries through to the audio poster pack as well, which is another product which was put out based on the earlier script. It was a cassette tape with an audio play version of the film.
And not just like the soundtrack, which they've done before with things like the old 60s Doctor Who live theatrical films. Got just soundtrack releases with some narrating bits put in between the dead scenes to explain what was going on when there was no dialogue. That is not what this thing is. They got a completely new cast of actors to act out this thing for this this poster pack that came with a cassette tape.
Yeah, it seems a lot like every step in this movie production had some opportunity to be at least more, like, classically, traditionally good, or at least closer to what Nintendo was probably envisioning a movie based on Mario would be. Like, Bob Hoskins being cast as Mario is kind of crazy now, because now Mario's got a Mickey Mouse voice, and he really doesn't look as old as he used to look. Now he could feasibly be in his 30s, like, it seems to be said.
Like, speaking of some of those old shows, one of those old shows had live-action segments where Mario was played by older gentlemen.
Right.
Captain Lou Albano.
Yeah. So I can definitely see Bob Hoskins being the, like, more I don't know what the right word is.
Gruff.
Austere, rough, like the film version of that, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
certainly
don't
fits
think
in with
Captain
the
Lou
portrayal
Albano
in the
was.
Super Show live action. Yeah.
I don't think Captain Lou Albano played a particularly gruff Mario, though, as much as he did
Well,
like an old,
he
fat Italian New York
he
guy.
definitely played the gruffer brother.
Oh,
'cause
sure.
Luigi was like the younger twin, but kind of, a little dopey, a little more optimistic about everything.
Yeah, I think out of like every presentation of Mario and Luigi, this is the only one where Luigi is not kind of the pansier of the two characters.
Actually, yeah.
In this movie, Luigi is the star of this movie. Actually,
Luigi's
Luigi's the main
not
character.
just the star. Luigi was the this is the person young girls are going to come see the film for, which is why he has several shirtless scenes in the film.
You know which character girls are always super into? It's Luigi from Mario.
No, it's John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This version of Luigi is definitely that. But like you say, that's not what I expect from Luigi. But in this movie, he embodies that really well, and it's a unique portrayal, and it stands on its own.
Yeah, I think Luigi's or the way Leguizamo portrays Luigi in this movie is probably one of its best features. He's a very central, charismatic role that the audience is very, very easily put into a surrogate role with him.
Yeah.
But speaking of other charismatic actors, the original actor who was penned to play Mario was not Bob Hoskins. It was Tom Hanks. Which, just every time I think about that, it's amazing. They almost got Tom Hanks the year before Forrest Gump to play Super Mario.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow.
The year before Forrest Gump, and I think 2 years before Saving Private Ryan. Or maybe this was the year Saving Private Ryan happened. I don't know.
They should get him for the Illumination movie.
Yeah.
Well, if that's animated, they would probably get his brother Jim Hanks, who always does the voice parts for characters that Tom Hanks has played.
Even in movies that are just Tom Hanks with CG rotoscope over his face.
Oh, maybe not that, but like in all the Toy Story video games, Woody is played by his brother. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. But speaking of,
like
there is another
or him too.
Mario Bros. Theatrical film coming up, being done by Illumination Studio. That what they did, they are doing a new Grinch film about the Grinch's childhood, and are they the ones behind Despicable Me?
Yeah, they're the Despicable Me / Minions caretaker. I think that's definitely their biggest property.
Yeah.
They're known for doing a quicker, more slapdash job, and I'm not saying that's like bad. I am saying though that they're known for a definite
lesser standard. They're
lesser
the new
standard for
DreamWorks.
details, at least. Yeah. Which doesn't excite me. I wish it was probably any other studio but them.
Yeah.
But I guess they
I
didn't get
can see
DreamWorks.
that. I can see that film being much closer to games, just like the earlier cartoons were, and not really striking out and having a strong creative direction the way this one does.
Yeah, I foresee this being a much more Alice in Wonderland type, and then this happened, and it's all just game set pieces, as opposed to something that, like Wreck-It Ralph, which was airsats like Mario and Donkey Kong from the 80s, which actually had like a story to tell.
So
what was the phrase you used before to describe this movie? It was Wizard of Oz meets
Mad Max.
Mad Max?
Mad Max,
Yeah.
yeah.
It looks like that. It looks like Wizard of Oz meets Mad Max. Actually, there's a point of contention about the not the premise for the whole movie, because that dinosaur thing's crazy, but the premise for who Mario and Luigi are in this movie. They are not Mushroom Kingdom people. They're not enhanced in any way. They're just plumbers living in Brooklyn, New York.
Well, that's actually like that's what that's who Mario and Luigi were at that point. Like this came out in what, late 93?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Yoshi's Island was not even announced yet, which was the first game to like retcon their origins as being Mushroom Kingdom residents.
Yeah, the standard agreed upon backstory for Mario and Luigi is that they were from Brooklyn, and you see that in the original Donkey Kong arcade game, and then in the Mario Brothers arcade game, they are plumbing the sewers of New York, which gross.
Yeah.
But they apparently find a magic pipe in those sewers that leads them to this alternate reality or dimension,
or at least other
other
creatures are coming out of that during the game. But by the time of Super Mario Brothers, they've got there, and you can sort of see that process happening in Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy, where they start. Actually. Yeah, do you want to take that?
Yeah. Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy is an expanded remake of the original card game, and by expanded I mean the first 4 levels are the same, and then the next 100 or so levels are completely new content. But it starts with them in the big city, obviously meant to be New York or stand-in for New York. And by the end of the game, they have chased Donkey Kong into a place where there's mushrooms and a kingdom in the background and stuff, and the implication being that this was the journey that led Mario to the Mushroom Kingdom. Yeah,
there's a scene near the end specifically where he goes through a pipe, and then there's all these mushrooms. Once you beat Donkey Kong, he takes one of the mushrooms and grows larger. And
yeah. And they've been flinging miniaturization mushrooms at you earlier in the game, and the end boss fight is DK fell into a pile of the super mushrooms, so you have to fight giant DK. And that's very much a part of that game's story. But yeah, so prior to Yoshi's Island, that was just Mario and Luigi are from Brooklyn. They're plumbers or blue collar workers.
Yeah,
and
they
that
have a
lines
lot of
up
different
pretty
blue collar
closely.
jobs in early games, and you can see that backstory certainly in the live action segments of the Super Show as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially in the theme song to the Super Show, there's a scene where Mario and Luigi are literally sucked into their kitchen sink drain, and then they just go through this whole whoa, I'm falling through all this stuff, whoa scene until they get to the Mushroom Kingdom with Toad and Peach. Or Toadstool at the time.
I told you I love it when you do that voice.
Oh, this voice? Whoa!
Yeah.
And the movie's very pure to that because, it's 1993. There's nothing to disrupt that telling of Mario's backstory yet. Mario and Luigi start in Brooklyn, then they go underground into specifically it's a dig site that Princess Daisy's been digging up because she's an archaeology student because plot.
And we can tell because she's dressed like the most stereotypically archaeology field major I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's almost like she was an extra at the Indiana Jones movie filming.
I know, right?
And they just got her.
I was thinking of the dig scene at the start of Jurassic Park. She's Dr.
Totally.
Alan Grant, but younger.
Yeah.
And that is there's a weird portal to the Mushroom Kingdom in the sewer. That's the way they do it. There's a conspiracy theory out there that Yoshi's Island was actually the way it is, being that it's a story about the birth of Mario and Mario being born, or at least the stork delivers him to Yoshi's Island, which is very much already in this crazy mushroom world. It's specifically done to distance the character of Mario from the movie that came out. Yoshi's Island was 2 years after the movie.
Given how much of Yoshi's Island was a reaction to other things Miyamoto wanted to push back against, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
I really wouldn't be either. And now, Super Mario Odyssey, this is a bit of a tangent, but Super Mario Odyssey is kind of bridged that a little bit. They said, no, the city that Mario was originally from still exists in canon. It's called New Donk City, but it is on the same dimension and plane as the Mushroom Kingdom and Yoshi's Island, so all that pipe travel that we're talking about still could have been done, but it would have just been from one geographical place to another.
Man, those pipes
Do they-
just go through the planet's core.
I guess so.
Do they say that he was born in New Donk City? Because there's sort of an implication in this movie that Cooper modeled some of the construction of Dino Hatton after Manhattan after seeing it.
Oh yeah, that's actually like a slight little continuity error in the film itself, because they mention, like, over halfway through the film, they're like, oh, the portal's been closed, but something happened to make it open up again. But then you realize that, like, oh wait, no, the movie opens with someone coming through 20 years earlier than that.
Yeah.
And the implication is that they've been, like, sneaking in and observing us for a while now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Cooper came through 20 years ago to chase Daisy's mother, but then the tunnel collapsed, which might have
Yeah.
blocked it off. Maybe.
Actually, this
This is
might
not
be
a
good
first
spot
watch realization. This is a
that we're like
second or third
halfway
watch.
through the well, we're half an hour in. Maybe we should actually talk about what happens in the movie.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sure.
Would you like to start?
Sure, I guess. So you get this. How would you describe that opening? I wouldn't exactly use the word animated.
It
But
looks like
semi-animated.
a PC game from the
I think
mid '90s, like an edutainment humongous game, like Pajama Sam
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing you'd
Yeah,
see
or
at your
like-
at your local science center,
Yeah,
teaching you about
it's
ecology or something.
pixel graphics, a cutscene, if you will. And it's this Brooklyn announcer voice explaining about the dinosaurs being wiped out by this meteor, but wait, what if that's not what really happened? And the Mario Brothers tune is playing over it.
Yeah.
And then we sort of like transition from pixelated stuff to real life, like the opposite of old grainy televisions when you switch to the porn channel. and we get the real world, and we get this woman.
Yeah,
in
I'm gonna stop you right there because the interesting thing is that the movie opens with the narrator literally saying to the audience, "Here's this ridiculous premise. Just imagine, what if that happened? Okay, now you're ready to go."
yeah. They kind of ease the audience into this.
Yeah, and that's something that was added at the last minute after they showed the movie to test audiences, and they were like, "What?"
You know, something that just occurred to me. Did they have that pixelated intro because games at the time were very pixelated?
Well, they
Did
had
they
it
think
because
that
they were
that looked like a
intending.
video game?
They
'Cause
were
it did
intending
not.
to do a more expensive looking animation with more realistic looking dinosaurs, and they didn't have the budget for it. So I think they just pixelated a shot they already had in order to make it super cheap to get some dinosaurs in there. That's my theory.
Yeah.
But yeah, the video game theory is good too.
Yeah. But yeah, it's you get this woman running through what you come to realize very quickly is the sewers of New York as she comes out, and she's got like this basket, and she leaves. It's you know, a desperate woman is running from something and leaves a baby on the doorstep of a chapel, except it's an egg.
Right.
And she puts this little like gemstone in this magical like someone in our chat group the other day said this looked like a prop from the Phantom Menace.
Oh yeah, that was me.
This this little harness that the crystal goes into over the egg, and yeah. And then goes back in and is like, okay, she's a bit more relieved. She thinks the danger is past, and you know, cue from the shadows, Dennis Hopper, whose character we don't know yet, except she just calls him Koopa right there, so I guess we do. And he's, as a nice bit of continuity detail, he's dressed in a military uniform with tons of accolades and stuff. Like, this is a high-ranking guy, and he just brings the roof down on her. And that's the intro to the movie. We get the title card, we get the 20 years later as we do our pan shot of New York to let us know we're in New York, because the rest of the movie probably wasn't filmed there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was filmed
Yeah.
in what's the city? Because they have the bar that has that prop up on the wall, right?
Oh yeah.
What city is
yeah.
that?
I can't remember, but there is a bar with
Toronto?
some props from the film.
Yeah, and they have
I wouldn't be at all surprised
a
if it was
whole
Toronto.
fossilized skeleton up on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
And so we get into, you know,
Yeah, what we hear is
Mario
a voiceover of Mario talking on the phone saying, "Oh, what's wrong with your plumbing? Yeah, well, don't touch it. We'll be right there." And he tries to get Luigi up to say, "Oh, we got a job," but Luigi, he's too busy watching his crazy TV programs. What's called
he's
Our
watching
Miraculous
World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mario's like, "I
bizarre.
can't believe you
Which,
believe
again,
in that
is a
miracle
thing
stuff."
that Men in Black did. Huh, interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, it is a lot like that. Yeah. So many movies owe a lot to Super Mario Brothers in terms of
Obviously,
it's
a
true.
pioneer in
So
its
many
field.
movies, if you get right
But,
down to it,
like,
are based on Super Mario Brothers.
So instead of just doing a scene by scene, we
Sure.
basically get some setup where Mario and Luigi are the purveyors of Mario Bros. Plumbing, and they're fairly well known. Like, the people around town know them. But there is the big bad construction company
Conglomerate,
owned by Scapelli, who is a guy the Mario Brothers, or at least Mario, knows.
It does not
I
like.
believe in script treatments, it's somebody he grew up with, like the neighborhood bully who's now in charge of everything. And Scapelli now has a plumbing division that is edging the Marios out of business, and they're not well. Mario's not happy about it. Luigi's just kind of
yeah, if I could
Scapelli's
quote
not
from the
plumbing, though,
novelization.
right? Scapelli is construction, I thought.
Scapelli is construction, but if you look at the vans, it's Scapelli Construction Plumbing Division.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's got a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah.
businesses listed there that they're in. If I could quote from the novelization for a minute.
Please do.
Our boss, Mr. Scapelli, you know him? Know him, Mario had to laugh. I grew up with that bum. He ain't a plumber, he's a toxic waste dumper. He don't know a pipe from a crowbar.
Yeah.
I think
This
that
is
would
from a
have been
scene
a
that was
really
actually
easy
cut from the
addition to the
film.
movie that would have actually kind of explained a lot about who Scapelli is.
Well, it was
Yeah.
filmed for the movie, but they cut it. You can actually see stills of it, of this scene. It's when the Marios get to the cafe to fix the thing, and the Scapelli thugs are there, and they muscle him out of the job.
Yeah, and the implication is Scapelli's got a lot of money and he gets a lot of contracts, but he's not actually that great at his job, because there are numerous scenes throughout the film, or at least in the parts of the film that take place in Manhattan, of the Marios coming in and fixing a shoddy job that the Scapelli people have done.
So anyway,
So-
Scapelli meets up with Princess Daisy, who's an archaeologist doing a dig in the middle of Manhattan. I think Scapelli doesn't want her to do that because of if she finds anything important, they can't build there. Is that the
Well,
correct thing?
it is a build site, and they were clearing bedrock to lay foundation and found some bones
okay.
that are now being looked at by the archaeology department of the local university, which is a thing that happens in real life fairly frequently, just not in
definitely.
New York.
And they say later on that the blasting actually opened up the portal again to the... Yeah.
So Luigi has a meet cute with Daisy.
Yep.
He asks her to dinner after like the craziest ask out to a date scene in any movie ever. Like honestly, this I hate this scene. I hate this scene a little bit. Like the idea that this is how dating works is crazy. Like Daisy just meets Luigi. Luigi asks, "Do you eat?" And Daisy says, "Well, yeah, you can't say no because I have to eat." And then Luigi's like, "Dinner tonight?" And then Daisy's, instead of just being like, I literally just met you, like maybe, but like calm down. She's like, absolutely. And they go to.
I mean, to be fair, I've had first dates that got set up like that. So
Well, they
They presumably had a
whole thing out of
conversation
it,
in the
too.
van on the way there. But
Yeah.
it also plays into the relationship between Mario and Luigi, because Mario is there prompting him and like talking for him because Luigi's too like
the
choked
whole-
up to get
what
it
my
out.
brother is trying to say is, would you like to accompany us to dinner later tonight?
Yeah.
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 And they make a whole fun dinner date out of it where Mario's girlfriend, Danielle, also shows up. Daniela, sorry.
Yes.
Daniela.
And?
Daniela from the salon.
And her full name?
Her full name is Daniela Pauline Verducci, the
Yes.
future mayor of the goddamn city.
That's right.
That's actually not stated anywhere in the movie due to a couple different cut scenes, because that full name was going to be revealed in a couple different places over the course of various
including
script
a
treatments.
proposal and wedding scene between Mario and Daniela at the end that was cut.
Two different proposals, because the proposal happens in different places depending on which script you're reading.
Right.
I think the filmed version of the proposal happens during the rescue.
During the rescue. Cool.
Yeah, he just proposes to her right there.
So after the date, Daisy and Luigi hang out there walking around for a while. Daisy offers to show Luigi the sewer and her dig site. And he's like, whoa, there's a dinosaur person here. He's like, whoa. And then they just kind of breeze over that. But then two people who we've dubbed Wario and Waluigi, two of Scapelli's henchmen, they're like in a different room in the underground, and
yeah, they get caught in the act of sabotaging the pipes.
Yeah. Like they set this whole place just flooding, and they run away. Then Luigi apparently has enough time to go all the way back to his house, get Mario, come back, and then turn all the pipes off with Mario. And it's at that point where they realize that there's an open portal to the Mushroom Kingdom somewhere in the sewer.
Well, you skipped over...
And they realize we skipped over Spike and Iggy.
Yes, who we've met at
Koopa's
this point a few times. The bumbling villains cousins. Of the film.
Speaking of age differences, these guys are presented as Koopa's cousins.
Yes,
they're ostensibly the Koopalings stand-in for this film.
Cousins can be pretty different, though.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And they up until this point they've been seen kind of skulking around in the background. They're looking for someone, presumably Daisy. We've been seeing some background news articles about missing Brooklyn girls. They kidnapped Daniela by mistake. They're like, is it the right one? And it's like, she's got 2 legs and a head, right? How many times can we get it wrong? Right? And they come in and bonk the Marios on the head, grab Daisy, get her out of there.
Right.
Yep.
So
they're the stupid
brothers.
henchman type, but they do a good job with that, and they've got some good physical comedy chops there.
And then, the Mario's following along, see this portal in the wall and jump through, and we get like the trippiest scene since the last time this scene was done in Tron.
Yeah. Of just Mario falling through like a cosmic bathtub full of...
Like, you ever looked through a kaleidoscope while on acid? Like... Yeah.
And it's also like he's falling through a geode. You can see all these crystal structures.
Yeah.
Which ties into the crystal theme. Yeah.
Yes. So I just want to do an overview for the rest of the movie because we're going too slow with this.
We are.
We just love it so much. We can't stop talking about all the details.
Shenanigans ensue.
Shenanigans ensue. Mario and Luigi find Daisy and Daniela, who've both been stolen by Koopa's people.
And the rest of the Brooklyn girls and the one from Queens.
And just the atmosphere down here in the Mushroom Kingdom is crazy. It's like Tokyo, Seattle, Dark Edition. And like people are just grilling up hot dogs with lizards put in like long ways into the hot dog, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it.
Like imagine Blade Runner, except everything's just kind of moldy.
Yeah.
And covered in fungus. Literally covered in fungus. That's a plot point.
Yeah, the
It's
people
like this
are lizards
grungy
and
sort
the
of
air
techno-industrial dystopia.
And people have like not skin conditions, but just like random scales on their faces.
And everything has spikes. Everything
has spikes.
And sparks flying all over the place.
Yeah, like, you know those little wind-up... This might be too old for Mitch. Those little wind-up toys that would make the little sparks while they go off and do their little tiny walking. Like the Bomb. The Bomb is this little wind-up toy that does the feet thing.
I mean, yeah,
those
I know
things
wind-up
would, like,
toys.
spark.
Have you heard of
But they-
Have you heard of Clockwork?
Yeah,
But
I've
the
existed
really old
before.
ones, the really old ones would like send off these sparks and shit.
I
Yeah,
don't
it's
remember
pretty
while
the
they were
sparks.
walking along.
But all the cars in the film are
Um,
essentially like dodgem cars, or bumper
Mhm.
cars. They run off this
yeah.
overhead electrical grid. I'll point out, since we're talking about the world design and the sort of sets, the art director for this film, the art director also was art director on Demolition Man.
Oh,
The
yeah,
production
that makes a
designer
lot
was
of
also
sense.
production designer on Demolition Man and art director on Blade Runner. That's David L. Snyder. And the
Oh,
art guy's
fuck,
Walter
really?
Martisius.
Wow. I wonder if they borrowed
So-
sets.
Props
They
to
might
them
have.
because they did a fantastic job at making the world of this film seem
Yeah,
interesting.
no,
and,
like they
yeah.
went for what you would expect to be low budget and would probably be considered low budget today. They put a lot of work into this set design.
To be fair, it's
like
they keep talking about this big city that they're going through, and really they're just showing like clever angles of this one street. Like,
yeah, there's like the main thoroughfare, and we just keep getting it from different angles.
Yeah, there's
it's
one
only
shot
ever
when
one
they
street,
first
and
get
it's not a
there
very
with a
long
big matte
street.
painting that they pan up to, but you never
Yeah.
really see much after that. It's close-ups, yeah.
They do a good job of making it feel like a really big but dense city
Yeah.
that's just full of people packed in. Because this is based as far as Koopa is concerned, this is the only city on the planet.
right.
Just surrounded by desert.
Which is a weird thing, because Mario games at this point have had a lot of other locales besides
Yeah, like
desert
we-
and city.
We also had Super Mario Brothers 3, which featured 8 other kingdoms. In fact,
Yeah, and then Mario
So-
World was like an island adventure in the middle of a sea. None of that exists in this movie.
and just speaking of Koopa a little bit, the motivations for things happening behind this film is Koopa wants that rock that Daisy's got that she now wears around her neck as a necklace because it is a shard of the meteorite that chipped off on impact, and if the meteorite is put back together, basically the worlds will merge again, and the dinosaur people will not be condemned to this one city, and will actually get to like experience the rest of the world. And he's it's kind of like Ganondorf's Wind Waker backstory a little bit, where he's like, well, we were kind of stuck in this shithole and we wanted out. I coveted those wins.
Unlike
Yeah.
that, however, this is very, it's very much shown to be Koopa's fault. Like, it's poor managing of resources.
Yeah.
The rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer to the point where they just like have over-farmed and overused the entire planet. It's interesting. I can't think of too many other movies that are kind of like about that kind of global warming-esque thing, where the regular humans are actually doing pretty well compared to this other thing that shows up. We're usually the ones that are like, oh, we've mismanaged our entire lives.
Yeah.
Is Demolition Man like that? Maybe.
No, Demolition Man is just crazy future.
Just wacky now.
Okay, it's not like an environmental disaster. Okay, I was trying to draw more parallels.
No, people just do everything weird now, and they have
Demolition
to poop with
Man
seashells and
is
stuff.
low budget Judge Dredd is what Demolition Man is.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But yeah, he like 20 years ago he executed a military coup and turned the old king, Daisy's father, into all the fungus that is surrounding the city.
Yeah. And we get that exposition from Toad, who's a great little character who shows up briefly, played by Mojo Nixon.
And he did this via the Devo machine, which is the magic MacGuffin that explains so much of the things in this film.
Right. So this machine can evolve or devolve people into their ancestors or descendants' presumed forms. And usually what that means is, if you go forward into advanced or like modern, that's human. You look human. And if you go backward, it depends on who you are. Like if you're Mario or Luigi, if you're from the real world, you'd probably turn into a monkey, a gorilla of some sort. But if you're if you're Daisy or Koopa or Toad or anyone from this world, you will turn into any number of things depending on how far they set you back. So if you're set back a lot, you're just like a primordial ooze. Set back a little bit less than that, you're all the fungus that he turned the king into. A little bit less than that, you're a Goomba, which is just this round head reptilic thing. A little bit
this
less than that, you're a
hulking,
Troopa, which is a little
like-
bit more formed. Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere in between there is Koopa does get de-evolved into some semblance of a Tyrannosaurus at some point.
Right.
Who
And that
claims
is
to be
supposed to...
descended from the T-Rex.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So if you're
He
weirded out,
turns
like,
into
why
a
is
kind of-
Bowser, why is King Koopa just like a guy in this? For like 2 seconds at the end of the movie, he is briefly something that I guess you could argue resembles Bowser a
Yeah.
bit.
I guess a point to bring up is this film is ostensibly trying to be an origin story for Super Mario Brothers, so one could argue that, like, this is how Bowser becomes the big monstrous thing.
Mm-hmm.
but then he
that
just turns into
is.
slime.
Yeah, but the king turns back later, so why can't Koopa? So
Yeah, okay.
I
Accept
mean,
that.
like, what... The king had a centralized knob of fungus
yeah,
that
he was. I don't know why his throne was under Devo Chamber number 2, but whatever.
Yeah, you'd think that King
4?
Koopa would, like,
Okay.
want that throne, but he just thought it would be funny if he put it under the mushrooms.
Well, he likes to go there and gloat to it and say, "Oh, look,
Yeah,
you're so
that's
tough. I
so
took over."
funny.
No.
I like to go in
That's a
this
good
room
scene,
and talk
actually.
to this mushroom that I turned this guy into and just say, hey,
And
dude, you
just-
look stupid as a mushroom.
Yeah, just so you know, the bad guys inevitably get the meteorite piece back in, and there's a showdown between Mario and Bowser, and Luigi saves the girl, and you know,
Mhm.
it's an action movie. But it's a fun action movie, and aside from
An
that
adventure
opening
movie.
thing, contains no Mario music whatsoever.
Yeah,
And that's
this
not even
movie
in the
has a
film. That's
theme
just over a
song.
production logo.
Like, the success of Mario has a leitmotif. Anytime Mario does something well, there's this song that plays that I... Yeah, exactly. You
That's
did it
it.
exactly right. It's exactly like that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
Alan Silvestri is the composer for this film, and he doesn't use any game themes throughout the whole film.
I
But
wonder if he's just like, I'm put on this project, ain't no way I'm gonna, like, degrade myself by playing a video game.
Well, I don't know. Like the Transformers film didn't feature any of the music from like the show, and got like fucking Weird Al and Devo on the soundtrack and stuff.
Yeah, I would argue
And
that's
some
also a
Def
bad thing to
Leppard
do.
knockoff, and just like, no, that soundtrack's amazing. You take that back.
To
But anyway.
Transformers? No, I won't.
Yeah.
I'll take that one to an argument. But with the
but yeah,
Mario
just-
theme, I like the Mario theme they came up with. It's just like, why?
Well,
I was
I
just
think it
going
makes sense.
for like maybe the film landscape of the day was like, we need a film soundtrack.
Yeah.
We can't use a lesser thing.
Well, you
I
can
think they could have
arrange
made
any
orchestral
theme into, like-
versions of the melodies. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But I think given how much the visuals are divorced from what you see in the games, it kind of fits in with that to have the music also be completely different. And
Yeah.
the last time I watched it today to prepare for this, I noticed this nice theme that comes on whenever Lena and Daisy are having a scene together. And I started thinking about how great that was as a sort of sinister theme. But then I realized that you could probably replace it with the Super Mario World Castle theme, and it's
Yeah.
not too different.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
So it could go
so
either way.
mentioning Lena real quick,
Yeah.
she's the only original character created for this film. Everybody else and almost everything else in the film is based off something from the game.
Well, hang on.
Like, you've got-
Scapelli isn't, but
Yeah.
Scapelli is
no, it
like
is.
an amalgam of like Wario and Foreman Spike.
From Wrecking
well, yeah,
Ball,
but that's I feel
In-
like that's us reading into it, comparing it to things that we know about. But yeah, at the end of
I
the
don't
movie,
think
there is
so.
actually something that Scapelli is, so I take that back.
yeah.
well,
he is
in
turned into a-
earlier one of the scenes that is cut, is because first of all, Scapelli is the construction the antagonistic construction foreman who knows Mario. But like, and then to go along with one of the scenes at the end where he gets Mario dodges out of the way, so the devolution blast that was meant for him hits Scapelli, which devolves Scapelli into a chimp.
Right.
Follows on from an earlier scene that was cut of Scapelli antagonizing Daniela Pauline at the construction site. So I'm just taking this as the origin of Donkey Kong, right?
Yeah, Scapelli is supposed to be Donkey Kong, but like every other animal or like monster in this movie, it's just a human.
Right down to like background extras, like the two Devo technicians in Koopa's room where he does all this mad scientist stuff to people and turns his citizens into Goombas, are Wart, the boss of Super Mario Bros. 2, and Gloober, which I don't know.
Bloober, which is supposed to be Blooper.
Sorry, with a B, not with a G.
At the time, they were known as Bloober in the manuals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, were they? Okay.
One of those names change over the years.
I corrected you. I corrected you guys about it earlier, but
why he was a squid person, I don't know. Goombas were mushroom people or whatever, but everyone's lizards in this. But yeah, like, so random background extras are named after enemies, like major characters in the film are Iggy, who was a Koopaling, and Spike, who was not, and was just a Koopa enemy. Big Bertha, that annoying fucking fish that always fucking kills me in Super Mario Bros. 3. Is a major character in the film and is like the entire mini antagonist of Act 2.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Then switches sides like a lot of people in the film.
Yeah,
Iggy and Spike switch sides later on. When Toad gets de-evolved into a Goomba, he eventually figures out that he wants to be on Daisy's side and help her. So there's a lot of that going on.
Yoshi shows up. The Spike theming is from the tile set used in Bowser's Castle stages.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before. My assumption with like why everything has spikes on it is that someone did the tiling of King Koopa's room in spikes as a reference to Super Mario World and the way it actually looks. And then someone else just went like, "Oh, we're doing spikes? Got it." And just did everything else in the movie just like, "Okay, pillows have spikes
everywhere."
Everything is spikes.
Background elements, like there's street signs for like Hammer Bros tattoo and the Wiggler bar and just like the
street vendor
rocket boots.
The street vendor is selling fried tweeters and wigglers and things like that.
Yeah. And like the rocket boots they use are called thwomps. Like everything is a reference except Lena, who is the spiteful I'm not going to say love interest. She's in love with Koopa.
Yeah.
Koopa doesn't give a shit.
Well, yeah, she's it's a role that was necessary for the film to have a secondary antagonist.
Yeah.
But it's not really something that was ever necessary in the games. So I think they just made something up for it.
We were kind of surmising that if this film had come out like a year and a half later, she would have been like named Kamek.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, my theory was that she was meant to represent Peach. But that really works. As in the sense that we're drawing a connection to things that showed up later. But yeah, at the time, that wasn't a factor for them, and they created her for the film.
Well, being that we call those two Scapelli guys, Wario and Waluigi, I think we can also call her Kamek if we need to.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Another exception to that, though, is the policeman who brings in the Marios. He shows up later to have an exposition scene about the Devo gun. In the script, he's called Simon.
Okay.
Right.
He's just called Simon. That's his name.
Okay.
In the finished film, it's sort of implied in the first Devo Chamber scene that the tech operating the panel is Simon because Koopa's talking to him. But all through the script, that policeman is consistently referred to as Simon. And that name just comes from nowhere.
So
Simon and the woman who just puts her feet all over him.
Yeah. So to go back to the to the thwomps, they are these like an overlay for your shoes that Mario and Luigi find in the Mushroom Kingdom that allows them to jump really high, which is a hearkening to their ability to jump in the games.
They remind me of the thing you have to strap onto your feet to connect to skis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or like you ever play with moon shoes?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got the trampoline inside of them, but they're like buckets that they're hard to stand in.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're essentially over boots with big hydraulic presses. And by the way, you load them up with a cartridge in the shape of a bullet bill to make them work.
I was going to make the point that Chargin' Chuck would have just been a much better name for that than Thwomp, because Chucks are already
Thwomp Stompers. Yeah.
Chucks are already shoes.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, and they charge.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
That's running and not jumping.
They probably make you a little better at running too, but point taken. We are at over an hour, so I think we're going to have to wrap it up pretty soon.
Okay. Let's see. We talked a little bit about the poster pack that came with the cassette. That was
okay.
The radio. No, well, not even a radio edit, but it's like the only thing I can compare this to is an old radio play, because you've got like the radio voice announcer doing his,
narrator,
and then this happened and blah blah blah, and you get the slightly overacted scenes between characters and stuff.
If I remember to do it, there's going to be a snippet of that at the beginning and end of this episode.
Okay, awesome. There's a novelization, there's a coloring book, there was a set of action figures.
Yeah.
It got a bit of tie-in material, not like the whole shebang. Like there weren't like McDonald's toys or whatever.
And sadly there wasn't a video game tie-in, which would have been perfect.
Yeah, there was never a Super Mario Brothers the movie the game in any form.
Well, the person to make that would be Nintendo, and Nintendo, as we were talking about it earlier, they were not fans.
I would actually argue that the people to make that, since they had the various distribution and product rights, would be Disney. And
well, were they really making games at the time, or they were just telling Capcom to make?
Oh yeah,
games,
they were.
weren't they?
There was a Disney Interactive
prominent
division.
Magical Quest games, featuring Mickey and friends, was ongoing at that.
That was
time.
actually a Disney developed team. Like a developing team?
Well, it was a Disney licensed thing at the very
least. Well, yeah,
least,
that's what I mean. Like, they would
could totally see Disney going, hey, you guys make a tie-in game for this movie on this engine, because...
I doubt they had the rights for that, but...
So
they probably would have had to work something out with Nintendo. But...
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. But we did get some tie-in material, like Gibbon was saying. I would like to plug the website smbmovie.com.
Absolutely.
A fantastic resource if you want to know anything more about this movie. They've got the old scripts, many different revisions of them. They've got the coloring book, the poster pack. It's all linked there. They got pictures of the action figures, the trading cards. They've got interviews with cast and crew. It's really a great resource. And the fans behind it, Stephen Applebaum and Ryan Hoss, they are deeply involved in a lot of projects to keep the film's legacy alive. They were behind the Blu-ray release recently. They mastered a lot of the extra features for that and stuff, and got it happening. They are working on a musical version of the film, apparently.
They're doing the upcoming extra special edition Steelcase Blu-ray release that has, among other things, that Disney edit of the film that we were talking about earlier.
That's amazing to me, by the way, that Disney just said, yeah, we're Disney, one of the most notably overbearing companies of all time, but you guys can just do it if you want. You can just make the Blu-ray if you like. Yeah, and they did. They're doing it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And those two guys, they also made a comic as a sequel to the movie with input from Parker Bennett, who wrote the original, or one of the original scripts, and then came in for script doctoring later in the process. So it has some legitimacy. It unfortunately wasn't finished. It hasn't been updated since mid-2015, but it's well worth a look.
And then in addition to the musical, they were working on a short, I don't know how lengthy this is supposed to be, but the Dinosaur City thing, where which was going to take place in Dino Hatton and just feature a short film, student project length set in that thing, using original props and costumes and stuff.
Yeah, because these guys are such fans that they've bought up a lot of the props that were used on the film when they come up in auctions.
Not legally having anything to do with Mario, but using just something set in that world.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the leads from the film have passed away at this point, which is kind of sad. But Samantha Mathis is still around. She's Daisy.
Yeah, and John Leguizamo. They can do a Daisy and Luigi thing. That's the heart of the movie.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniela's actress posts fitness videos on Twitter a lot. Not her own fitness videos, just plugging other Fitness
What a
videos.
fun Twitter
cool.
account.
Hey, I follow her.
Gotta get fit somehow.
Dana Kaminsky, yeah.
Yeah.
And just another really quick plug, the novelization that we mentioned, you can get it on Amazon probably, but it's also been converted into an ebook on the Tumblr, retroreadingtime.tumblr.com, so an unofficial ebook, so go and check that out.
So thank you guys so much for coming. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys about the movie.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's been fun doing this. It's been a lot of fun just spending this week reacquainting myself with all this material.
Yeah, in
absolutely.
preparation for the podcast, we watched the movie with each other over Skype, and that was so fun. I loved that.
Yeah, it was great.
One thing I want to close out on, one last trivia detail. In the movie, it's clarified that they are called the Mario Brothers because their names are Mario and Luigi Mario. Their last names are Mario because why would you call the brothers by one of their first names? That totally makes sense. And that's been like borderline accepted over the years. That's the one aspect of the movie that really has kind of fed back into Mario continuity and canon.
Quote unquote.
Right. Miyamoto himself has gone back and forth. He's at one point said that's not the case, but recently he's said that was the case. Is that correct?
Something like that. I can't keep up.
But being that Nintendo is who they are, they could just take it back again. I want to clarify here on the SuperJump podcast that they are called Mario and Luigi Mario as far as SuperJump canon is concerned. You can take that one to the bank. We're not changing. We are rock solid and stubborn, and that will be what they are called for the rest of their lives as fictional characters, which I'm sure will exceed mine and SuperJump's. But
oh Lord.
In the meantime, we'll jump at you next time. Stay super.